So in this segment, we're going to be talking about fears grow as the UK factories hit by worst supply chain shortages since the mid-70s. Now, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, I was not around in the 1970s, so you guys are going to have to tell me how bad that is. I did speak to someone on Twitter about it. He said it was pretty bad. So let me know how bad it was in the 1970s. So British manufacturers are struggling with their worst supply chain shortages since the mid-1970s as fears grow in the sector over the economic fallout from rising costs and lack of key materials, also a lack of staff as well. So they're facing multiple increases in costs without getting any benefits from the situation. Almost 2/3 of businesses in the snapshot from the CBI warned that shortages of components would hit factory output in the next 3 months. So that sounds fun, especially in the run up to Christmas. That was the biggest problem biggest share since January 1975, a year when inflation hit a post-war high amid severe economic turbulence in Britain and abroad, with NHS doctors going on strike and Glasgow bin collectors staging industrial action. Now, the doctors thing may not happen, but the situation with bin collectors, a lot of bin collectors are leaving the industry to become HGV drivers, so it might not be necessarily a strike. They could strike for better pay, but I think what's going to happen is a lot of them are going to leave the industry. The latest survey of 263 manufacturers held against the backdrop of severe supply chain disruption caused by COVID and Brexit also reported rising concern over staff shortages holding back industrial output over the coming months. Now, the staff shortages would be caused by Brexit over the pandemic, which is fairly obvious. A lot of people returned back to their native countries in the EU or other countries in the EU where they had opportunities and or family to live with. And they probably would have debated coming back to the UK after the pandemic or sort of after things cool down a bit here, but have chosen probably to stay within an EU country because they have more rights and probably have a job and they won't face as much racial abuse as they do here. It's the top and bottom of it, really. And the high rents we have in the UK, disastrously high. As many as 2 in 5 firms are worried about a lack of skilled labour to keep factory production lines running. Let's not forget that it wasn't just, quote, low-skilled EU workers that had left. It's also high-skilled EU workers that have left. And that's caused massive problems. The highest since July 1974, when Britain was still emerging from the 3-day work week months earlier. So again, no experience of the 70s. I've read about the winter of discontent in books, but aside from that, I don't have a ton of experience with the 70s. The CBI warned Sunak that companies were facing mounting costs and that growth in manufacturing sector was at risk. Faced with slowing economic growth and concerns that severe disruption could ruin Christmas, a very strong possibility. Ministers drafted in former Tesco's chief executive, Sir David Lewis, this month to lead a new supply chain advisor group. I mean, what's he going to tell you that you don't already know? You need more lorry drivers. You need more workers. Like, what's he going to tell you, honestly? The CBI said bold action was required in the budget to unblock short-term challenges across the economy. Again, this is not going to be able to be fixed. I mean, let's think about this. We're not going to be able to get lorry drivers in from the EU because of Brexit and IR35 tax rules. So we ain't getting more coming in. The ones that we do train have to have 6 months worth of experience to be hired. So if they ain't even getting hired, the ones that we are training, not great, because firms want experienced drivers, or at least a bit of experience. In terms of factories, in warehouses, some of these are very skilled jobs, some of these are labour intensive jobs which British people typically don't want to do, especially because the pay isn't that great and the working conditions are pretty poor. So what that means is you have a massive staff shortage in multiple sectors, which we have actually discussed at length before. And that causes manufacturing massive problems. Manufacturers are using key levers such as hiring new workers, planning further investment in plant and machinery and training to expand production, said Anna Leach, the Deputy Chief Economist at the lobby group. But with both orders and cost growth expected to climb over the next quarter, we're not out of the woods yet. And, the question I'd ask is, what do you want the government to do here? Honestly, what do you want them to do that they're actually going to do, which is not much? So you can see here that they are facing major problems with soaring global energy costs, which the UK are bearing it a lot worse because we are out of the EU's internal energy market, and the fact that we're really ticking off France, which could cause us problems. Also, the fact that EU countries are kind of coming together and saying, look, we're having massive energy cost problems. Maybe we should start cutting off third countries and dealing with ourselves, helping ourselves out first, which, again, they are absolutely entitled to do. Threadneedle Street is widely expected to raise interest rates to tackle above inflation, above its 2% target rate. Threadneedle Street. I'm guessing they're talking about the Bank of England there. The Bank of England haven't increased interest rates. I don't think they will, because it's going to have knock-on effects to the economy. However, the government and the bank have said rapid growth in prices is likely to be temporary and should fade next year as pandemic disruption recedes. But we know these aren't caused primarily by the pandemic. What they are caused by is predominantly Brexit. So that's not going to make sense. That's not going to make sense. Raising interest rates now, it doesn't make sense either. Honestly, if I were the Guardian here, I would have put in a correction saying that the predominant problems are because of Brexit, not because of the pandemic. So I do have some kind of issues with this article, but it's not a good situation, is it, for manufacturing? They're talking about 1970 style inflation and problems. Why is it that other European countries aren't facing this 1970 style problem? Gee, I wonder why. Northern Ireland aren't facing these sorts of problems as much either. It's not hard to figure out what's going on here, guys. I don't want to have to spell it out for the audience, because I know the audience are smart enough to figure it out for themselves. But 1970 style problems for the UK, or GB should I say. And like I said, aside from reading a couple of books in A-level history, I'm going to say, not A-level politics, let me know how bad the 1970s were for all of you people that were alive then. I'm going to refrain from using the phrase boomers, because you're not quite boomers. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.